Chapter 8. A Nest of Crooks and Gangsters. From somewhere deep inside the walls of the cave there came a deep rumbling and grinding of machinery, as very slowly the jagged zigzag crack in the solid wall widened and widened and widened until the two halves of what was really a secret door slid sideways into deep slots in the side walls of the cave. And what do you think Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's light showed through the opening? A huge vaulted room, quite as big as a sports hall, and all around the sides were cases and boxes and barrels and sacks neatly stacked up against the walls. It was an underground warehouse, a very secret warehouse for secret things. What could these things be, and who owned them, and why did the owners want to keep them a secret? And why did they want a very private cave leading down through the cliff to the sea? And where were the owners? And since it all smelled so strongly of secrecy, and there probably of unlawfulness, how nasty could these owners be? These questions and many others ran through all their minds, and Commander Pott put their thoughts in a nutshell when he put his hands on his hips and declared, "Ho-hum, I smell dirty work. Now then, everyone, switch on the brains, full power. What do we do next?" Mimsy, who was, like all mothers, worried about the children, said at once, "Darling, let's close the secret door again and reverse quietly back down the way we came. I don't like the look of this at all." But Jeremy and Jemima just wouldn't agree to this. They were both the tiniest bit trembly about the way the adventure was going, but they had inherited some of their father's exploring bug, and they were terribly eager to discover the secrets of the big underground vault. "Oh, please, Mimsy," they both pleaded together. "Do let's find out what it's all about." Commander Pott reflected and said, "Well, Mimsy, after all, no one's going to eat us, and the children don't seem worried. I vote we see the adventure through. We'll be ghastly reversing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang the whole way back now over a mile of cave to the sea. Besides, we've been climbing all the way and we can't be far from the top of the cliff. The cave obviously goes on out of this vault on the other side and leads on to the top. Come on, we'll drive the car up onto the level floor of the vault and give her a rest, and then have a good explore. After all, this is pretty thrilling, and we really must get to the bottom of the secret." "All right, darling," said Mimsy rather reluctantly. "You know, I'm just as keen as you are to find out what this is all about. But if you ask me, there's something pretty fishy about all this. Something criminal. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we hadn't come upon a nest of crooks and gangsters. I hope none of them appear while we're looking into their secret hoard." "Oh, well," said Commander Pott cheerfully. "Have to take the rough with the smooth. You never get real adventures without a bit of risk somewhere. Come on." And they all piled back into Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and crept up the last bit of slope until they were parked slap in the middle of the huge secret vault. While the others piled out and began carefully sniffing about round the edge of the bales and barrels and packages, Commander Pott went back and found the switch on their side of the secret door, and with a grind and a hum of machinery, the two halves came together again. Then he came back, and they all systematically began to pry and peer into the secret stocks that were piled up around the walls of the big, echoing vault. Jeremy was the first. "Machine guns!" he cried excitedly. "Packed in greased paper! They're in sections ready to assemble!" Mimsy said, "Oh heavens, boxes and boxes of bombs and hand grenades!" "Daggers!" called Jemima. "All kinds of them, and bayonets with rifles to go with them." "Well, I'm dashed!" said Commander Pott. "Dynamite in these cases, and yards of fuse, and gelignite, the stuff burglars use to blast open safes and strong rooms." "Revolvers!" called out Jeremy. "Automatic pistols, big ones and small ones, every kind, with boxes and boxes of cartridges." Mimsy called out anxiously, "Now don't touch anything, children. You can look, but not touch. Something might go off." Mothers are always thinking something is going to go off. On Guy Fawkes Day, for example, with the fireworks, and very often mothers are right about this. I must admit that Jeremy and Jemima knew this through one bitter experience with a box of jumping crackers, and they were very careful about the way they peered into the boxes and bales. So the search went on, and there was no doubt about it, the family had come upon a great secret arsenal of weapons that certainly hadn't been hidden down in the vault, except for some secret and probably criminal purpose. Finally, they all came together again in the middle of the vault, and they looked at their father to see what he was going to say about this extraordinary and rather frightening discovery. Commander Pott had a scruffy bit of paper in his hand, and he said, "Do you know what I think all this stuff is for? In one of the boxes full of coshes and clubs and knuckle dusters, there was a scrap of paper that says, 'Special order for Joe the Monster, 453 Basher Street, Soho, London.' Now, he's the man I've read about from time to time as being responsible for most of the bank robberies and hold-ups in England that the papers are always full of. But the police have never been able to catch him, and they've never even been able to find out where he gets his weapons from. Well, there's no doubt about it, this is his secret arms dump, and I bet my bottom dollar he smuggles what he wants from time to time over the channel on foggy nights by speedboat. Now," Commander Pott scratched his head, "what do we do next?" I know, cried Jeremy excitedly. "Blow it all up!" "Don't be silly, darling," said Mimsy. "What about us and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? Do you want to blow us up too?" "Well," said Commander Pott thoughtfully, "it would be rather fun, wouldn't it? But first of all, we must find the way out of here. The cave must go on to the top of the cliff, or Joe the Monster and his gang couldn't have got all this stuff down here. Now, I've noticed that the draft we've been feeling all the way up the cave is coming from over there." He pointed to the back of the vault. "From behind those huge packing cases. Let's just go and have a look." He went over to the packing cases and hauled on the front one, and instead of weighing a ton, as they had all expected, it moved easily aside, and so did the next one, and the next one. And when he moved the fourth, with the help of the family, all tugging and panting, there was the continuation of their cave sloping upwards, and in the distance there was a pale glimmer of light. "By golly!" cried Commander Pott, "that must be the top. Now then, we'll get Chitty Chitty Bang Bang through the opening, and go on up until we get out of here, and then I'll run back and lay a fuse down the cave to the dynamite. We'll get as far away as possible before the firework display." He looked at his watch. "It's after 8, so it'll be dark enough to get the most out of our fireworks. Ha! But I'm famished, and I know all of you must be. So after the big bang, we'll go off to the nearest town and find somewhere for dinner and bed. We'll certainly have all earned it after this evening's work. If all goes well, and I don't see why it shouldn't." So they piled back into Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and she started up with her 2 sneezes and 2 small explosions, and they motored between the packing cases and up the slope and out of the secret vault with its huge hoard of explosives and guns that belonged to the biggest crook in England, Joe the Monster. Outside the vault, Commander Pott stopped the car and went back while the twins watched through the entrance to see what he did. He took a long roll of fuse out of one of the boxes. It looks like stiff, thin rope, and it's stuffed with magnesium powder or some other such quick-burning explosive, rather like the blue touch paper you light when you went to set off a firework. He attached one end to the stacks of dynamite that comes in oblong sticks and piled all the gelignite, that's a stiff, putty-like stuff, on top of the dynamite, and then he unrolled the length of fuse and came back to the car, after blocking up the entrance again with the big crates so that the explosion, when it came, wouldn't chase them up the cave. Then he gave Jeremy the big roll of fuse to unwind as they went along, and off went Chitty Chitty Bang Bang up the sloping cave towards the distant glimmer of light that was the entrance. The entrance was hidden behind a big clump of bushes in an old disused quarry. But Chitty Chitty Bang Bang nosed her way through, and they bumped and banged across the rough floor of the quarry until they came to a cart track that led away across the fields to one of the French main roads about 10 miles away. It was getting dusky by now, and far away across the fields they could see the sidelights of a car that seemed to be coming towards them along the same cart track as they were on. "I expect it's some farmer," said Commander Pott. "Come on, we better set light to the fuse and get away quick, or we, and perhaps the farmer too, may get a lump of chalk on our heads. There's a terrific load of explosive down there inside the cave, and heaven knows how much of the cliff we're going to blow up when the fuse gets to the dynamite. Ha ha! Commander Pott got out of the car, took the rest of the roll of fuse from Jeremy, cut off the end, and threw the rest of the coil into the back of the car. Then he knelt down and put a match to the end of the fuse. Well, I don't know if you've ever seen a real fuse on fire, but the flame runs about as fast as you can run, and with a tiny bang and a splutter, the little yellow flame darted off across the floor of the quarry, back towards the bush which hid the mouth of the cave, and Commander Pott dived for the driver's seat and got Chitty Chitty Bang Bang quickly through the gears and racing off along the cart track away from the danger area. When he had gone a good 200 yards away from the edge of the quarry, he stopped the car and they all looked back and waited. And I must confess that Mimsy and Jeremy and Jemima all had their hands firmly clamped over their ears. "It must be close now," said Commander Pott excitedly, and even as he said "now," there came a deep, rumbling roar from right down inside the cliff. The ground shook, a great yellow jet of flame shot out of the quarry they had just left, and from the edge of the cliff there came a distant flash and a deep boom, and a pillar of smoke rose slowly into the air as the force of the explosion rushed down the long cave and burst out down by the edge of the sea. Then came a series of smaller underground explosions and crackles as the ammunition boxes blew up one by one and the bombs and cartridges caught fire. And then there came one last terrific roar and whoosh of flame out of the quarry and two seawards, and there was a crackling and rumbling noise in the ground, and the cliff top above the cave split open, and smoke and flame came out like a mixture between a volcano and an earthquake. And then the smoking crack in the ground closed again, leaving a big dent in the grass where the inside of the cliff had collapsed, filling in the underground vault and the remains of the cave. And then there was silence. They all let their breath out in a whoosh. "By golly," said Jemima. "Gee whiz," said Jeremy. "Well, I never," said Mimsy.